Hi everyone, this is Heather Lottanen from the Flourish Academy. This is episode 454. Today we're talking about Lightroom performance, and I'm curious, please leave a comment and let me know, how has Lightroom been performing for you lately? Because in the past few days, I have had several people lament to me that their Lightroom is painfully slow. And in some cases, photographers have said that they can only have a couple of sessions in Lightroom before it starts giving them trouble in terms of being slow. So I have 4 things I'm going to give you today in order to help you speed up your Lightroom. But first, we need to define what that means exactly. What would it feel like for Lightroom to be performing well for you? And I would say that for the most part, you can have tens of thousands of images in your Lightroom catalog and it should still perform. Now, occasionally there might be a slowdown or things might not be lightning fast, but for the most part, you should be able to have many sessions inside of Lightroom and be able to work fairly quickly. There are a few things that take longer than others, such as generating previews. But for instance, when I import my photographs into Lightroom, I check the box on import that says generate standard previews, and I let that happen ahead of time so that when I'm going through my photos, I'm never waiting for a preview to be generated unless I need to zoom in and generate a one-to-one preview. Now, I don't automatically generate one-to-one previews on every image because it takes up unnecessary space and I typically don't need it. I only need to zoom in on a few images, check for the focus, and then be set. Okay, so the first thing you need to do is make sure that absolutely everything is up to date. Of course, I mean Lightroom, make sure Lightroom is up to date, but also your operating system. So Lightroom, Adobe specifically, has been releasing a lot of updates and bug fixes lately, and they're all around performance issues. So if you update Lightroom, but you haven't updated your operating system in 2 years, then there's going to be a conflict. How that conflict shows itself could be the blue screen of death on Windows. On Mac, it could just freeze up, it could crash, it could corrupt your catalog, or it just might be painfully slow. So I would like you to check Lightroom, make sure that it is up to date, and check your operating system. They both have to be up to date, but also as a general rule of thumb, I would make sure that all of your applications and programs are up to date, because believe it or not, there can be these very strange conflicts that happen. So make sure your machine is up to date. Okay, so that's number 1. Number 2 is to make sure that you have ample free space on your hard drive. I always recommend that you are working from an external hard drive when it comes to your images, but actually, and you do need to have free space there for sure, but I have found more importantly that you need to maintain a certain amount of free space on your operating system drive, and that's just so applications have the room to run freely. Okay, what does that look like? I did some testing a couple of weeks ago when Lightroom was very slow for me, things were crashing, my hard drive was acting suspicious, and I determined, first of all, on paper, the manufacturer will recommend that you leave 15% of your hard drive free in order for applications to use that space. I have found that that really needs to be more like 20 to 25%, and having 30% free is fantastic. So if you have a 1 gigabyte internal operating system hard drive, you should not fill up 1 gigabyte of that hard drive. You need to leave space free so the application can run. And I find that for a lot of you, that's a problem. So you definitely want to check your operating system drive. Do you have enough free space for it to run? And your external drive, do you have enough free space there? And you need a lot of free space, so definitely check that. Okay, that leads into number 3, which is your machine truly capable of running these Adobe applications? Number 1, you have to have sufficient RAM, random access memory. Now, Photoshop and Lightroom will claim that you only need 8 gigabytes of RAM to run the application. I don't think so. I think it needs to be a lot more than that. And in my iMac behind me, I have 32 gigabytes of RAM. Now, I never purchase my RAM directly through Apple. I always do aftermarket because Apple RAM is crazy expensive. But I buy my machines with 8 gig and then I add more. Now, my laptop, believe that's running at 16 gig. And the reason I say I believe is because I really don't use that as a production machine. I teach from that machine when I'm on the road, but primarily I'm working on my iMac and it has 32 gigabytes. So how much RAM do you have in your machine? Now listen, if you're running on 8 gig of RAM and your hard drive is 90 to 95% full, yeah, Lightroom is going to be really, really slow for you. So you definitely need to clean that up. Also, how old is your machine? So if you tell me, oh, I have all the RAM I need and I have all this space, but my laptop is 5 years old, well, it could be the hardware that is holding you back. So if you have an older machine and you're trying to run these newer applications, I'm sorry, you're going to have issues. Listen, I was heartbroken when I had to give up my 8-core Mac Pro, not MacBook, no, Mac Pro. I had a Mac Pro machine. Oh, she was a beast. She was a beaut. I spent $8,000 on that machine back in the day so that I could have it completely souped up. And it was amazing. It had enough RAM, it had enough space, it had everything. But at some point, the hardware was out of date and I was heartbroken. And this was maybe just 2 years ago when I finally had to ditch it in favor of the iMac. I actually still miss that machine. It's in my basement. We use it for some other things. But the point is, I don't care if the machine looks like it should be able to handle this. If it's older than, I don't know, 3-5 years, some of you are fine on those machines, but if you're complaining that it's slow, it could be your machine and you might need a newer machine. Now, I've had this happen to photographers where this is how the scenario goes. They got a new camera. They're super excited about their new camera and they shoot raw in their new camera and they go to import the photos into Lightroom and Lightroom says, hey, we don't support that raw format, because they have an older version of Lightroom on their machine. So they're like, okay, I need to update Lightroom. Well, they go to update Lightroom and the computer says, whoa, hold on, you can't update Lightroom because your operating system is too old. So then you're like, oh, I'll update my operating system. Do you see where this is going? And then you update the operating system and your computer's like, wait, you can only update to this version because your machine is too old. Next thing you know, that camera purchase actually leads to, I need to purchase a new computer. You don't want to find yourself in that position because it's a lot of money to drop at once and it's a huge headache. So you just have to keep up to date with all of these things. So can your machine really handle Photoshop in Lightroom? And listen, I'm sorry, if it's an old machine and you need a new one, that's what you have to do. Or maybe it's newer, but it's running on 8 gig of RAM. Well, then you can just buy some new RAM. They're just little sticks. You put them in there, easy peasy, no problem. Okay, and the fourth thing to speed up Lightroom is I have 2 screencast videos that I'm going to post the links to below. You need to watch those because I actually stepped through Lightroom in some of the settings that you can change or manipulate in order to speed it up. So definitely watch those. Okay, if you go through all of these steps, these 4 steps we talked about today, and you watch those screencasts, and you do everything exactly as it is said, I can guarantee you that Lightroom will run faster. But if you come back to me and say, Heather, I did everything you said, but my machine's a little bit older and it's still slow, I'm gonna say it might be time for a machine. So I wanna recap these 4 things if you're just joining us. Number 1, make sure you update everything. Update Lightroom, update your operating system, update all of your applications because there can be some weird conflicts. Number 2 is clean up your hard drives, both your external hard drive and your internal operating system drive. Minimum 15% space free, but really, honestly, I don't think that's enough. I think it needs to be more in the 20 to 30% range of free space. If you don't have that free space, either clean it up or buy a new hard drive. Number 3 is make sure that your machine is powerful enough to run the applications. And number 4, watch the screencasts. Leave a comment. Let me know, has this worked for you? Where are you at? Is Lightroom slow? Is it making you crazy? How can I help you? I hope that you found this useful. I'll see you in the next video.